Saving the children, the world responds, but still more is needed to help the victims of the tsunami disaster. Good morning to you. This is the News Hour on GMTV.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock on Friday the 31st of December, New Year's Eve.
It's now believed that children make up 1/3 of the victims of the disaster in Southeast Asia. This morning, as you and the rest of the world give generously to an international aid fund, we ask what's being done to help the youngest survivors.
Yes, collectively, the death toll from the tragedy stands at 125,000. But that number is still rising, and the number of homeless and in need of immediate help is at least 5 million.
Indonesia has announced this morning that it plans to host an international tsunami summit on January the 6th. Meanwhile, the Foreign Office here is warning against all but essential travel to Thailand and Sri Lanka. Rachel Harrison has the latest.
A new year, a new start. Never before have those words meant so much. For the people of Indonesia, the worst hit area, they will literally have to start from scratch. This satellite picture taken in June shows the shore area of the Aceh Peninsula. This is the scene today. 2/3 of the city has been destroyed. 28,000 people here swept away by the ocean's mighty roar. The Indonesians are calling this their ground zero. The devastation 6 days on is still hard to comprehend. No one knows what happened to these innocent children captured just moments before the first wave hit. Overall, the death toll in the last 24 hours has risen by 40,000. Officials are no longer able to predict a final death toll. In Sri Lanka, officials have little information from the north and east. They've learnt to expect the worst. For those that are left, finding food and clean water is their biggest struggle. No one is looking to the future. Survival is on an hour-to-hour basis. Although there's been an overwhelming response from the international community, many areas still haven't seen any sign of aid. Few, if any, of the key agencies have a full understanding of how much help's needed and for how long. While the Western world celebrates the new year tonight, the hunt for the tsunami missing goes on.
Rachel Harrison there. Let's cross to Phuket in Thailand now, where there's particular concern for the number of children orphaned by the tsunami. Joining us on the line is Richard Gaisford. Very good morning to you, Richard. Young foreign children, we're hearing, are among those orphaned. What is orphaned? What's being done to help them?
Well, predominantly, Andrew, they're being helped by their national embassies. I was at Phuket Survivor Centre yesterday. Very harrowing and distressing place. Boards and boards and boards of pictures of the missing, of the dead, people trying to get information on their loved ones. And at that Survivor Centre, each of the national embassies has set up a stall, set up an office, and they're trying to help those children, farming them out to embassy staff so they can look after them until they can be taken home to relations. And there really are some pretty dreadful stories amongst them. And just one of them, actually, that struck home with me yesterday was that of Theo and Lewis Barrett Mullen. Now, they are from Cornwall, and they have lost both parents in this disaster. Two young British children who are among hundreds and hundreds who are now in the same situation from all around the world.
OK, Richard, thank you very much indeed.
Well, the British response to the disaster appeal has been overwhelming, with some £25 million raised so far. Jonathan Swain is in central London for us this morning, close to the appeal's nerve centre, and he's been keeping an eye on the disaster fund's totals. Good morning, Jonathan. These figures are just quite unprecedented, aren't they?
Certainly are, Jackie, and this is BT Tower, which has been handling the flood of calls since the lines opened 2 days ago. They've been receiving donations at the rate of some £1 million an hour, just a staggering amount. That equates to around £15,000 per minute. Well, the number to call is 0870 60 60 90, and as if help were needed to try and promote the number, celebrities have also been lending a hand as well.
And they just want to give us as much as they can. Do you have an expiry date on that? It should be in the right-hand corner. Even today, I just can't stop watching the TV and the images, and it just breaks my heart. It's just absolutely horrendous, and it's it's probably one of the biggest disasters I think we've ever seen. I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Anything you can do to help, whether it's fundraising in your local area or making a donation to the DEC, anything will really make a massive difference.
Well, the UK government have today announced that they're increasing their aid package from £15 million to £50 million. That's the largest amount given by any country so far. And later on today, the United States will also meet with the United Nations to discuss how best to coordinate the relief effort on the grounds. They say that they've been more than pleased with the donations from people around the world so far. But the real challenge for them, Jackie, will be to try and turn these millions of pounds into work that will really help the homeless and those people on the ground in Asia.
Thank you. We'll be back with you later for an update. And if you'd like to help the survivors, you can see the number on the screen there, 0870 60 60 900, 0870 60 60 900. And you'll also find the details on our website, of course, gm.tv.
Shortly after 6 o'clock Friday, the last day of 2004. The rest of the news now from Lucy.
Thank you. Good morning. At least 149 people have been killed and more than 360 injured in a nightclub fire in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires. It's thought that as many as 1,500 teenagers were in the club at the time for a rock concert. Unconfirmed reports suggest that a firecracker aimed at the ceiling may have started the blaze. The sporting world is celebrating this morning with the news that Kelly Holmes is to be known as Dame and rower Matthew Pinsent as Sir. The Olympic gold medalists are being awarded the top gongs in the Queen's New Year's honours list. Here's Havovi Todd.
She secured 2 gold medals in Athens and back home was voted Sports Personality of the Year. Today, Kelly Holmes crowns all that with the top honour from the Queen's list. Fellow Olympian Matthew Pinsent becomes a knight, while Paralympian Tanni Gray-Thompson also becomes a dame. Golfer Colin Montgomery secured an OBE for his role in Europe's Ryder Cup victory. In showbiz, comedian Eric Sykes is honoured with a CBE, as is The Who's frontman Roger Daltrey. Pop Idol judge Pete Waterman says he's been left shocked, staggered and, for once, speechless by his OBE. But a couple of names are causing controversy. Richard Bowker, former head of the now defunct Strategic Rail Authority, has swapped the SRA for a CBE. The SRA was scrapped after safety and performance failures. Top civil servant Douglas Smith is also being honoured despite the fact that he headed the Child Support Agency, condemned for inefficiencies which cost millions.
Critics say awards like that are turning people against the honours system because it's giving out gongs for gaffes. But half the Queen's list is nominated by the public, as supporters say it's still the best way to show appreciation to all our heroes. Havovi Todd, GMTV News at Buckingham Palace.
The family of murdered teenager Amy Williams has issued an appeal to help catch her killer. They described their shock at the death of the pregnant 14-year-old, whose partially clothed body was discovered in a churchyard on Monday. Police now think the killer could have taken her clothes to hide vital evidence.
Amy was a bright, happy girl, and everyone liked her. I had her whole life in front of her. She was expecting a baby, and we know she was looking forward to becoming a mom. Somebody has taken her away from us. And have left her for dead in a cold churchyard.
Sudden infant death syndrome is devastating, but when it happens twice in one family, grieving parents often find themselves under scrutiny. Now, new research shows losing a second child through cot death isn't rare and is probably due to natural causes. Claudia Redmond has more.
Angela Cannings, the mother accused of killing her 2 sons, had her case quashed in December last year when judges dismissed the evidence of the now discredited paediatrician, Professor Sir Roy Meadow. That controversy and the subsequent review of hundreds of similar cases led to calls for more research on unexplained baby deaths. Now the largest ever study carried out on 6,000 families who have lost more than one baby has concluded that between 80 and 90% are natural deaths.
It's produced information that has underscored the important need to examine every single death carefully, thoroughly, comprehensively.
There are calls now for professional bodies to follow a standard procedure when investigating infant deaths.
One of the wealthiest women in America could be stripped of her multi-million-pound fortune. Former Playboy model Anna Nicole Smith inherited £50 million from her dying billionaire husband's estate after fighting a bitter court battle with his family. Now a judge has ruled she wasn't mentioned in the will and isn't entitled to his money. It's 6:09. I'm back in half an hour. Now it's over to Claire with the weather.
Thanks very much, Lucy. Hello, good morning. As you can see, it's a chilly start across many northern areas of the country with some frost problems this morning, also some ice. Further south, we're hanging on to the cloud from yesterday and also some outbreaks of rain. That rain is very light and patchy, many areas remaining dry. The cloud will clear away, allowing some sunshine to form across many parts, turning windy in the north, some showers then piling in across northwest Scotland, turning windy here. Elsewhere, it's going to be mostly dry, but a bit colder than yesterday. Now it's back to Andrew and Jackie.
Thank you very much indeed. Shall we have a look at some of the front pages this morning? This is the Daily Telegraph. Obviously, the disaster in Southeast Asia all over the newspapers. Britons give $1 million an hour to help tsunami victims. So just concentrating on the second story here, the second lead. Joy is David Miliband adopts a baby in America. And the news actually was that they actually witnessed the birth. I guess Louise, his wife, is American, and they witnessed the birth of their son on December the 13th, which is not unusual in the States, apparently, so congratulations to them. UK leads 8 drivers, the horror goes on in The Guardian, and Dame Kelly leads the New Year's honours roll call of Olympic stars. So it's Dame Kelly Holmes now. The world digs deep, says The Times this morning, and in the Financial Times, apart from the quake toll, of course, Eli Lilly and storm over Prozac evidence. The US Food and Drug Administration said it would review confidential Lilly documents handed over by the BMJ, which received from this month from an anonymous source. It's talking about the antidepressant and how it can cause behavioural disturbances. Allegations, of course, but a big story.
Same sort of stories really on the front of all the tabloids. Some quite distressing pictures on the front of the Daily Mail here. Pictures of a mum on a beach in Thailand running towards her children, presumably to save them. And you can see the big wave approaching here. Nobody knows what happened. That's the Daily Mirror. Sorry, I said that was the Mail, didn't I? Nobody knows what happened to those people on the beach. Very distressing. And the Mail and the Express both talking about the massive donations from the British public to the aid operation. £1 million an hour yesterday. And the Mail simply says thank you, and a picture of a little child there reaching out for an aid package.
12 minutes past 6, featuring on the back pages this morning, the news that England's 20 Premiership clubs have banded together to contribute £1 million to the Asia Emergency Appeal. Joining me, the Daily Mirror's chief sports writer, Oliver Holt. £50,000 for each club. It's a decent gesture, Oliver, I have to say.
It is a good gesture, yeah. I mean, we often accuse the Premiership clubs of not giving enough to the lower league clubs and that kind of thing, so it is very welcome.
Let's get some views on the football, looking ahead to 2005. Look what we've got in the studio here. That's rather beautiful, isn't it? The Premiership trophy here this morning. It looks absolutely stunning. Who's going to win it?
I think it's going to Stamford Bridge for the first time for 50 years. I've seen them, I saw them just before Christmas. I saw them on Boxing Day. They're looking very strong, Chelsea. They're not looking like a team who's going to throw it away. They've got a 5-point lead. And I think this is their year. They've got a great squad. They've got a manager who's filling them with confidence. They've got players like Arjen Robben, who was scoring there in the Champions League. They've got terrific players. They've got everything. And I don't think they're going to be caught.
And Frank Lampard, their Player of the Year. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's going to be the. I think he's going to be the Player of the season. Not missed a league game now for more than 3 seasons. He's missed a consistency, but he's more than that. He's a great inspiration to them.
See, I remember talking to Brian Robson about 91 or 1990. No, actually, it was before that. It must have been middle of the 80s, actually. Good, time flies, doesn't it? And he was always saying that the big goal is the Champions League. I mean, this is the big money spinner. If you really want to be considered the serious football club that you want to be, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man U, you've got to win the Champions League. Can one of the top 3 do it, do you think?
Well, I think they can. I think, funnily enough, I think Manchester United I mean, they've all got a reasonable chance. I've just got a feeling that Manchester United might do it. I don't think they'll win our domestic league, but in cup competition, you're seeing Rooney scoring against Fenerbahce on his debut there. On their day, United have still got what it takes. I think the big obstacle to them is their next round, when they've got AC Milan, and that's a huge obstacle. I think whoever wins that tie will win the Champions League.
And what about Wayne Rooney? 3-match suspension for. Well, I don't know what it was. What was that called? It was a
nothing.
Shove.
It was nothing. I suppose it is being called a shove. Yeah. I mean, I'd be embarrassed if I went down under that shove, and you know.
But he didn't go down because he was. He didn't get a 3-month suspension because he was. He just shoved somebody. I mean, he knocked him in the face. I mean, you can't have the Premiership's arguably the highest profile man. You just can't be doing that. I mean, all this sort of stuff and having Alex Ferguson as a manager might be good for Wayne Rooney at this point, just to somehow calm it down.
I mean, the problem I've got with it, Andrew, is they're calling that violent conduct, and to me it wasn't violent conduct. I accept Sam Allardyce's point, the Bolton manager, that if you raise your hand in the Premiership, you're in trouble, and Rooney shouldn't have done it. It was silly, but I think he's being unfairly treated. I don't think he deserves a 3-match ban for that.
When's the Champions League, by the way, the next round?
The next round isn't till February.
So he'll be OK for that?
What?
He'll be all right?
Oh, yeah, it's just a domestic ban. It's a 3-match domestic ban, yeah.
Happy New Year, Oliver.
And to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed. ITV1 and 2 for the Champions League when that gets underway.
Yes, you're watching the News Hour on GMTV. This morning's other headlines. At least 149 people have been killed and more than 360 injured in a nightclub fire in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires.
The biggest ever study of cot death has concluded that losing 2 children unexpectedly from one family isn't rare and is probably due to natural causes.
And it'll be Dame Kelly Holmes henceforth as the Olympic champion is recognised in the Queen's New Year's Honours List. Now returning to the tsunami disaster, and while the tragedy has devastated communities around the globe, for those who survived it, there remains fear and confusion. This was the scene on the Andaman Islands yesterday when authorities in India issued a fresh tsunami alert amid reports of aftershocks in the Indian Ocean. It amounted to nothing, but it's been revealed that there have been more tremors. So could it happen again? Well, joining us in our Edinburgh studio is Dave Long, who's a marine geologist. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good morning.
Now, let's try and keep this as simple as we can. But basically, we know that what happened on Boxing Day was caused by the movement of these tectonic plates under the Indian Ocean. They're all over the world, obviously. Do you think this means that we could see a similar thing happening again?
Whenever you have a large earthquake, there are aftershocks afterwards, but they're usually a lot smaller in size and magnitude or more. And the aftershocks which have occurred since the event have been gradually reducing in size as each day has passed.
So does that mean that the chances of seeing another tsunami in that area are very, very small?
Yes, the aftershocks are considerably smaller. For a tsunami to be generated by an earthquake, you need to have a magnitude of 7.5 or greater. And the event which we had on Boxing Day was a magnitude 9, so it's a very, very large one. But the aftershocks are now considerably smaller, and they're not of a size to be able to create a tsunami.
Well, that's a great relief, I'm sure, to everyone out there. Is there any way that what happened on Boxing Day could have been predicted, though?
No. Earthquakes take place all the time around the world of varying magnitude, and the highest magnitudes do occur along particular belts around the Earth where the crustal plates are pushing against each other. But you cannot really predict exactly when an earthquake is going to happen.
Now, I find this extraordinary, but there's been reports that some islands near Sumatra have actually moved up to 30 metres in the wake of this. Is that a common occurrence after something like this?
The earthquake has caused islands, the land, to move upwards as it's released some of the pressure. So they have moved vertically.
And obviously these tectonic plates, as we said, all over the world. Is there any chance that something like this could happen in this part of the world, happen off our shores?
No, these very large earthquakes, these magnitude 9s, generally are all taking place effectively along the big subduction margins where one plate is pushed under another. We don't have that around the coast of the United Kingdom or the North Atlantic.
All right, Dave Long, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Almost 6:20 this morning. Now some news at home, and banks are under fire this morning for rushing in this new chip and pin system of processing debit and credit cards. This is one of these new machines. We're going to have to get used to this, and from the new year, businesses and not the banks will become liable for fraudulent transactions if they're still not using one of these. Security-wise, I suppose you've got a little barrier at the side here, so when you put your number in, people aren't supposed to be able to see, but I suppose that's one of the problems. On top of that, consumer groups say they're worried that criminals could simply watch us typing our PIN numbers in at any time and then steal our cards, making a mockery of a system that we were all told would be more fraud-proof. Well, Sandra Quinn knows all about this. She's from the Association for Payment Clearing Services. She joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
If I don't know my number, am I going to be able to pay for things with my credit card?
Absolutely. If you don't know your PIN on your chip and PIN card, as from tomorrow, you'll still be able to sign as you have been today. So there should be no problems at all. And if you've still got an old style card where you sign, don't worry about it. Until your bank replaces it, you'll still be able to continue using it.
OK, so when I get a chip and PIN credit card, I mean, is this ever going to become legal? Like, illegal if you don't know your number, you're not going to be able to pay? I mean, otherwise, what's the point?
It's not an issue by law. What this is a banking and retail sector industry project. The two sectors have combined together to introduce chip and PIN because it's a safer way of making card payments. The chip on the card makes the card impossible to copy, and couple that with the PIN, which only you know, makes it impossible for a fraudster to use your card.
And how long do you think it'll be before everybody knows their number, their new number? Because, I mean, we're surrounded by numbers and passwords and this, that and the other. I mean, I forget everything nowadays. It's an age thing.
We've been introducing chip and PIN since October 2003. We've been doing constant consumer research through that. And what we found is that cardholders really like chip and PIN. They think it's a really good way of beating fraud. And they're already used to using PINs. We use PINs on our mobile phones, on our burglar alarms. And the one good thing we've got now is that if you've got 2 or 3 cards, and lots of us have, then you can change your PIN to just one number and use that just to make it easier for yourself.
Does the burden for fraudulent use of a card now fall upon retailers rather than the card owner, as in Barclaycard or whoever it may be?
The real change is that from tomorrow the fraud liability changes between the banks and the retailers. But essentially that only means that those retailers who don't have one of those pieces of equipment, a chip and PIN machine, will be liable for fraud. All those people who've already upgraded don't need to worry at all.
Are you happy with the security of it? Because, I mean, the sides are not, you know, you can see the sides are not terribly big. And when they turn it round, you've got somebody just over your shoulder here and you're tapping it in. There's no such thing as complete security, I suppose.
Absolutely, there's no such thing as complete security, but what we've got there is a balance between accessibility and security. And as you put your fingers over the machine, it actually clouds the numbers as well. And what you've got to know is that somebody behind you knowing your PIN is completely useless unless they have your card. What we're offering is a better level of security in the signature at the moment.
But therein lies the problem, though. They need the card.
Absolutely.
There's going to be an increase in muggings because of this, isn't there?
Not at all.
You don't think so?
Not at all, no. Because all you need to do now as a criminal is steal somebody's card, copy the signature a couple of times in your back room, and then go out shopping with it.
Yeah.
You won't be able to do that in the future. We've made it much more difficult.
And that's if people even check the signature.
Absolutely.
OK. Listen, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you.
It's a good system, actually. I think it saves time, doesn't it, at the tills, just not having to sign anything. I quite like it.
Yeah, I hope it does. It's just more numbers to learn, isn't it?
Yeah. That's true. Anyway, I know. Still to come this morning, a teenager's brave fight to recovery.
Yeah, we catch up with Sarah Webster 3 months after she critically injured herself in a fall while on holiday in Turkey. You remember the story.
What's your name?
Brown, sir. Thomas Brown.
There were 2 fresh faces that day at rugby school. The new headmaster and young Tom Brown.
Have no fear, Tom.
Stephen Fry stars in a brand new adaptation of a timeless classic.
Learn from the strong. Protect the weak. Stand up to bullies and blackguards of every kind.
Tom Brown's School Days.
Then let the adventure begin.
New Year's Day at 9 on ITV1.
His political aspirations are well documented.
We'll laugh on the other side of their faces.
But who was the real Adolf Hitler?
Uncle Adolf doesn't like women to be too intelligent.
All German women should be married.
His loves.
Heil Hitler!
Heil Hitler!
And the influence they had on his private life.
We only love once.
Ken Stott portrays this historical figure in a remarkable tale.
I have only loved once.
An ITV1 drama premiere, Uncle Adolf, Monday at 9.
It's been a rather difficult end to the year, hasn't it? The news agenda has been so dominated by the tsunami and the earthquake in Southeast Asia over the last few days. It hardly seems sort of like New Year's Eve, does it? It hardly seems a reason to celebrate, does it?
No, I know. I suppose people will be carrying on as normal as much as they can, but it's just very, very depressing.
New Year's resolutions?
Oh, the usual, you know. Less wine, less food, more exercise. that lasts till about the 5th of January.
And yet more fun.
And more fun. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that, does it?
Sort of a tricky one, isn't it? But,
yes.
Yeah, nasty. We'll get the weather picture now with Claire. Back in a moment.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Topps Tiles.
brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Well, the end of 2004 is going to, well, finish on a fairly quiet note across the UK, and that's because there's not a lot of rain about. It's going to be mostly dry. And in fact, today we are seeing clouds and a little bit of rain this morning across the West Country as well as South Wales, across central southern England, East Anglia and the South East. The good news, that will clear off the scene. Most of us will see some sunshine, although it could be quite a breezy morning. Further north, it's a slightly different scenario. It's a rather chilly start today. It's a little cloud around, hence there is a risk of frost. In fact, some icy stretches on untreated roads across central and southern and northern areas of Scotland. Rather misty and murky here, perhaps 1 or 2 showers moving in across the far and northwest. Through the day, then that cloud clears off the scene. The cloud breaks up, allowing some sunshine, turning windy in the northwest, and we could see those showers becoming more frequent as we head through to the afternoon. Elsewhere, it's a mostly dry scenario and a lighter breeze. Temperatures slightly lower than yesterday, even so, fairly mild in the south because of the mild start. And for New Year's Eve, there will be some showers around, particularly for the north and also for the west. Breezy here, but the showers will come and go. That doesn't mean to say it's going to be copious amounts of rain. You will get some drier interludes. And further south, as you can see, mostly dry here with some clear skies. So if you are out and about, I would say the eastern side of Scotland getting away with a dry evening and overnight. For Belfast as well as Glasgow, Oban, you will see 1 or 2 showers here. As you can see, temperatures holding up above 0, so it's going to be quite chilly outside, but not really frosty and icy. Good news if you are driving this evening. For Cardiff as well as the West Country and much of Wales and Birmingham, Milton Keynes, London, East Anglia, it's going to be dry as well as Newcastle, the eastern side of England. So for tomorrow, well, it's a very different story. 2005 starts off on a stormy note. Gale force winds, a lot of rain lashing across from the west, and as we head through to Sunday, the winds turn around to more of a northwesterly direction, turning very cold indeed with some wintry showers in the north. Here's your summary. Check out what the weather will be like this weekend on our website, gm.tv.
Indonesia has announced this morning that it plans to host an international tsunami summit on January the 6th. Meanwhile, the Foreign Office here is warning against all but essential travel to Thailand and Sri Lanka as health chiefs try to stop the possible spread of disease. It's now believed that children make up 1/3 of the victims of the disaster. Many of those who survived are now orphans. Let's get over to Thailand now, where there's particular concern for the number of young foreign survivors. Richard Gaisford is in Phuket, as he has been for the last few days. A very good morning to you, Richard. What's being done to help these children?
Well, the foreign nationals, they are being looked after by the various embassies. I spent most of yesterday afternoon up at the Survivor Centre in Phuket town. It's quite the most amazing place and a very depressing place to be as well. There are boards and boards of pictures of missing people there, and it's full of families and friends and relatives looking for those missing people and trying to get any information they can. And as you rightly say, children make up a devastating and very depressingly large number of them. Those that have been found and are missing parents are being looked after by embassy staff before they can be returned to their own countries to be looked after by relations. It is really a very sad story indeed, and one just tale that's come out of that is the story of Louis and sorry, I just lost their names, Theo and Louis Barrett-Mullen from Cornwall, 2 young boys who are being looked after by the British Embassy because their parents have disappeared. I mean, it's thought that at this point that they're presumed dead, but everyone's still hoping for some sort of information. Now, the Foreign Office today has said, please don't travel to areas like this, specifically Sri Lanka and Thailand, where a number of British tourists would be heading. It has to be said that some resorts in Thailand have been totally devastated by this tsunami, by the tidal wave. Others, like here in Phuket, are only partially so. So it is really up to the independent traveller to decide for themselves, really, at this point, whether they want to come or not. The Thais, on their part, are doing their best to make things happen so that they can arrive here and have operating hotels and beaches. The cleanup is going incredibly fast. I just thought we'd show you these pictures that we got a little earlier in the day here, which just show just the devastation for one family. This is a lady diving into the water as the waves come in at Krabi, which is a resort further down the coast from here. And she is desperately trying to rescue her small children. And sadly, we have no idea whether she has or not, but it just goes to illustrate the lengths that people went to try and get their children safe. But as we started talking about at the beginning, Andrew, it really is a rather depressing story of hundreds of children missing and a number of children who are now missing their parents as well.
Yeah, Richard, one can only imagine what it's like to return to a country without parents or children. I can't even imagine the tragedy. Thank you very much indeed, though.
Well, collectively, the death toll from the tragedy stands at 125,000 now, but that number is still rising, and the number of homeless in need of immediate help is at least 5 million. Rachel Harrison has the latest.
A new year, a new start. Never before have those words meant so much. For the people of Indonesia, the worst-hit area, they will literally have to start from scratch. This satellite picture taken in June shows the shore area of the Aceh Peninsula. This is the scene today. 2/3 of the city has been destroyed. 28,000 people here swept away by the ocean's mighty roar. The Indonesians are calling this their ground zero. The devastation 6 days on is still hard to comprehend. No one knows what happened to these innocent children captured just moments before the first wave hit. Overall, the death toll in the last 24 hours has risen by 40,000. Officials are no longer able to predict a final death toll. In Sri Lanka, officials have little information from the north and east. They've learnt to expect the worst. For those that are left, finding food and clean water is their biggest struggle. No one is looking to the future. Survival is on an hour-to-hour basis. Although there's been an overwhelming response from the international community, many areas still haven't seen any sign of aid. Few, if any, of the key agencies have a full understanding of how much help's needed and for how long. While the Western world celebrates the new year tonight, the hunt for the tsunami missing goes on.
Rachel Harrison reporting. Well, the British response to the disaster appeal has been overwhelming. Some £25 million has been raised so far. Volunteers at call centres across the country have been handling those pledges, and Jonathan Swain is in central London for us this morning, close to the appeal's Nerve Centre. He's been keeping an eye on the disaster fund's totals for us. Jonathan, these figures just quite unprecedented, aren't they?
Just staggering, Jackie, aren't they? And that's BT Tower in the distance behind me there, which has been handling the flood of calls since the lines opened 2 days ago. And they've been receiving donations at the rate of £1 million an hour. So the British public have responded extremely well to the appeals for help. The number has been on the screen most of the morning. It's 0870 60 60 900. Those lines are open 24 hours a day. And as if help were needed to try and promote that number, celebrities have also been on hand as well to help.
Even today, I just can't stop watching the TV and the images, and it just breaks my heart. It's just absolutely horrendous, and it's it's probably one of the biggest disasters I think we've ever seen. I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Anything you can do to help, whether it's fundraising in your local area or make a donation to the DEC, anything will really make a massive difference.
Those lines continue to be open, as I say, and today the United States and the United Nations will discuss the best ways to try and organise and coordinate the relief effort on the ground in Asia. But the real challenge for them, though, is to turn these millions of pounds that people have donated into relief on the ground that will help the homeless and help prevent the spread of disease, Jackie.
Yes, indeed, Jonathan, thank you very much. And if you'd like to help the survivors, you'll find details of how to donate on our website, gm.tv.
6:33 this morning. The rest of the news from Lucy.
Thank you. Good morning. At least 149 people have been killed and more than 360 injured in a nightclub fire in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires. It's thought that as many as 1,500 teenagers were in the club at the time for a rock concert. Unconfirmed reports suggested a firecracker aimed at the ceiling may have started the blaze. The sporting world is celebrating this morning with the news that Kelly Holmes is to be known as Dame and rower Matthew Pinsent as Sir. The Olympic gold medalists are being awarded the top gongs in the Queen's New Year honours list. Here's Avovi Todd.
She secured 2 gold medals in Athens and back home was voted Sports Personality of the Year. Today, Kelly Holmes crowns all that with the top honour from the Queen's list. Fellow Olympian Matthew Pinsent becomes a knight, while Paralympian Tanni Gray-Thompson also becomes a dame. Golfer Colin Montgomery secured an OBE for his role in Europe's Ryder Cup victory. In showbiz, comedian Eric Sykes is honoured with a CBE, as is The Who's frontman Roger Daltrey. Pop Idol judge Pete Waterman says he's been left shocked, staggered and, for once, speechless by his OBE. But a couple of names are causing controversy. Richard Bowker, former head of the now defunct Strategic Rail Authority, has swapped the SRA for a CBE. The SRA was scrapped after safety and performance failures. Top civil servant Douglas Smith is also being honoured, despite the fact that he headed the Child Support Agency, condemned for inefficiencies which cost millions.
Critics say awards like that are turning people against the honours system because it's giving out gongs for gaffes. But half the Queen's List is nominated by the public, as supporters say it's still the best way to show appreciation to all our heroes. Havovi Todd, GMTV News at Buckingham Palace.
The family of murdered teenager Amy Williams has issued an appeal to help catch her killer. They described their shock at the death of the pregnant 14-year-old whose partially clothed body was discovered in a churchyard on Monday. Police now think the killer could have taken her clothes to hide vital evidence. Sudden infant death syndrome is devastating, but when it happens twice in one family, grieving parents often find themselves under scrutiny. Now new research shows losing a second child through cot death isn't rare and is probably due to natural causes. Claudia Redmond has more.
Angela Cannings, the mother accused of killing her two sons, had her case quashed in December last year when judges dismissed the evidence of the now discredited paediatrician, Professor Sir Roy Meadow. That controversy and the subsequent review of hundreds of similar cases led to calls for more research on unexplained baby deaths. Now the largest ever study carried out on 6,000 families who have lost more than one baby has concluded that between 80 and 90% are natural deaths.
It's produced information that has underscored the important need to examine every single death carefully, thoroughly, comprehensively.
There are calls now for professional bodies to follow a standard procedure when investigating infant deaths.
Confidential documents appearing to link the drug Prozac with suicide attempts and violence have been handed anonymously to the American authorities. They give details of side effects found in research during the 1980s. It's alleged the manufacturers of Prozac have played down the side effects of the antidepressant, which is taken by more than 50 million people worldwide. One of the wealthiest women in America could be stripped of her multi-million-pound fortune. Former Playboy model Anna Nicole Smith inherited £50 million from her dying billionaire husband's estate after fighting a bitter court battle with his family. Now a judge has ruled she wasn't mentioned in the will and isn't entitled to his money. It's 6:37. It's back to Jackie and Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, yeah, let's take a look at the papers now. I mean, obviously, there's really only one story still on all of the papers. A lot of them today talking about the aid operation and how much the UK is giving. The UK leads aid drive as the horror goes on, says The Guardian. We are now the biggest national donor, apparently. Daily Telegraph, same sort of thing. Britons give £1 million an hour to help tsunami victims. And one of the victims, there, a heartbreaking picture of this little child crying in Thailand. And The Times, the world digs deep, and that's the same picture actually, and showing here the enormous amount of aid given by Britain.
Daily Express, £1 million an hour. They say the government shamed into boosting aid as readers donate every spare penny. And here's a little girl, Elizabeth Perkins, contributing to an appeal in Cosham in Hampshire yesterday. The Daily Mail this morning, I mean, to hear that a third of children, a third of the victims of this disaster are children is quite shocking. So no shortage of emotional pictures, and Daily Mail just saying thank you to its readers and to its corporate sponsors as well. And this picture you'll see in quite a few of the papers this morning. This is in the Daily Mirror. Number one, you can see the first wave coming in. Number two, you can see as a woman spots her family, she starts to run towards them, and then you can see the enormity of these waves as they engulf a yacht there. And nobody knows, it says, whether anybody in this picture survived or not. There we are.
So many children on the beaches, and that's why, tragically, children currently account for a third of those who died after Sunday's killer tidal waves. The youngest victims of the disaster were in most cases unable to save themselves from the massive waves, and many of those who survived are now orphans. Well, joining me on the sofa is David Bull from UNICEF. Good morning to you.
Morning.
I mean, I presume like most of us and like everyone else we've talked to, you've never seen a tragedy on this scale involving children.
Well, I've been to a number of disasters. I was in Darfur a few months ago in Sudan. I went to the area where the earthquake happened in Gujarat a few years ago. But I think this particular disaster dwarfs everything we've seen before. It affects so many different countries and obviously very large numbers of people. I think we still don't quite know. Not all of the areas that are affected have even been examined yet to see what the situation is. So it's huge and it requires a huge response from all of us.
Absolutely. We've seen, obviously, adults coming back into Britain in tears, completely traumatised. But how much more traumatising must it be for children after something like this?
Of course, the children are always especially vulnerable in a situation of disaster. We know that a lot of the fishing communities that have been affected, children help out with the fishing and they're often running around on the beach, and so I think probably a higher proportion of children have been affected in this situation. They're very vulnerable to diarrheal diseases because of the lack of clean water and inadequate hygiene. They're in danger of being separated from their parents, even if their parents are still alive, or of losing their parents. And the psychological trauma which they will face will go on for a long time, and we at UNICEF will be trying to address that as well as the immediate health and nutrition needs.
So what specifically are you doing to help the children? It's such an enormous task.
It's a huge task. We have offices well established in every one of the affected countries, and those staff there have been working very hard. They started even within the first 24 hours delivering supplies in Sri Lanka, in India, in Indonesia. But obviously the logistics are very difficult and the cost is going to be huge. So we need all the support that we can get. But we are working very quickly. 3 aid flights have already gone, 2 to Sri Lanka, 1 to Indonesia. We're providing health kits, education materials, nutritional supplies and oral rehydration salts for children suffering from diarrhoea. Lots of other things are on their way.
Now, you work through the United Nations, so you're not part of the main disaster appeal. So I suppose if people want to help the children specifically, they could just contact UNICEF. They
can go to our website, unicef.org.uk, or they can dial 08457 312 312. It has been incredibly busy, of course, and we're very glad about that. People are amazingly generous. So if you have trouble getting through, please hang on and keep trying, and we need all your help.
Absolutely. All the appeals certainly do, don't they? Thank you very much for joining us, and all the very best with your work. Thank you.
Friday morning, New Year's Eve, just gone 20 to 7. In a few minutes' time, we'll be talking to Sarah Webster. Do you remember that story from a few months ago? She fell off a balcony in Turkey and she couldn't get home. The bills were so expensive. She was badly injured, but she's making a good recovery. So we'll pick things up with a little bit more optimism after all the Southeast Asia coverage this morning, and a trip to Scotland right after this as well.
Hello, good morning. The New Year's honours list announced today includes a pop impresario, an Olympic gold medalist and a great-grandmother from the Northwest. Rachel Gwilliam reports.
Yet another medal for Darren Campbell. The Manchester sprinter won gold in Athens this summer in the 4x100 metres relay. He's now been awarded the MBE. Pop Svengali Pete Waterman becomes an OBE, and Wigan Warriors captain Andy Farrell gets an OBE to add to his silverware. But it's not just famous people on the list. 71-year-old Violet Drummond has been awarded an MBE for the work she does for the community in Oldham. The great-grandmother spent years singing in her gospel choir, organising trips for local families and raising money for charity. The letter telling her the big news came as a shock.
I was nervous. I could not believe it. I don't know if it was glad or sad or happy. I think it was both.
And after 43 years of driving a bus around Lancashire, Chorley man Douglas Bailey gets an MBE.
I never ever dreamt that this would happen to me. I've listened to people in the past giving radio interviews like this, and wondered how it would ever feel, but never ever expected it would happen to me.
Mosques across the Northwest are today launching an appeal to aid the victims of the Southeast Asia tsunami disaster. Religious leaders will make the call for action during Friday prayers. Many Islamic regions were devastated by the giant waves that hit on Sunday. The family of a man who was gunned down in Liverpool has made an appeal ahead of the first anniversary of his death. 20-year-old Danny MacDonald was shot dead at the Royal Oak pub on New Year's Day. Danny's mother says there's a wall of silence surrounding her son's murder. 5 men remain on bail. One of the biggest firework displays in Europe takes place in Liverpool later. About 5 tonnes of fireworks will be let off from the roof of the Metropolitan Catholic Cathedral in a 20-minute display this evening. The New Year's Eve extravaganza is to celebrate the end of the Capital of Culture year of faith in one city.
The display will start at ground level and then build up to the corona, and then the culmination of the display will be a waterfall effect as the whole building is effectively dissolved in fireworks.
I'll be back with more news at 7:05. Now, though, the weather.
Brighten up your winter with the fresh smell of summer.
There'll be some patchy rain this morning, but it will be broken by a few sunny spells. Then this afternoon, the rain will continue in places, but most of us will have a dry, sunny day. Highs today of 10 Celsius. That's around 50 Fahrenheit.
It's 7:15 this morning, so just over 17 hours until 2005. So let's make our traditional visit to the banks of Loch Lomond, where Hogmanay is the biggest party of the year. Carla and Michelle are there for us. We'll say a very good morning. You look festive.
Don't I just? A bit sparkly just for you this morning, Andrew. This time tomorrow, people here will just be going to bed, let me tell you, having had perhaps one dry sherry, too many, and why not? Be rude not to. Now, we are on the beautiful banks of Loch Lomond. What a better place to spend New Year. Take a look at this. This is the sun coming up on the banks of Loch Lomond. You'll be seeing that for real a bit later on. It really is the most beautiful place to come and spend New Year. And I have to say, Hogmanay, the thing I love about it more than anything is that it's so steeped in tradition. It's all about music, it's all about dancing. We've got a bit of that here this morning, which we're going to see in just a second. But first of all, Billy Petrie, you're from the local tourist board.
Correct.
I want you to tell everybody at home why people should come to Scotland, and specifically Loch Lomond.
Well, Loch Lomond is a jewel in the Scottish tourist crown. We have everything here. We have the country pursuits. You can go swimming, shooting, hunting, sailing, hill walking, cycling. We'll have the lot, so why not come?
Do you know what, Billy? I'm loving the fact that Billy's staring straight down that camera. He's selling what he's got to sell.
That's right. It's a wonderful folk we've got here to give you such a Scottish welcome at Hogmanay.
Dana Clare, you're our Scottish country dancing teacher. Look at these lovely girls. Look, they're all dressed up in their little outfits. What are you going to show us just now?
A little bit of the village mead.
OK, carry on, ladies. I hope you're all practicing at home, because this is what you should be doing come in the new year. It looks simple. Let me tell you, it's not. I studied country dancing at school, and it was awful. Now, another big tradition is, of course, the bagpipes. Michelle, there's no getting away from the bagpipes in New Year, is there?
There isn't. It would be unheard of, in fact, to celebrate Hogmanay up here in Scotland without the sound of the bagpipes. Love them or hate them. But it's not an easy art to master, is it, John?
No, it is not, but with the help of tuition and practice, one can become quite competent and have great fun and pleasure playing with the bands and the solos and competitions as well as gala days.
You look quite at home there with your bagpipes. How long have you been doing it for yourself?
Over 45 years now.
That's quite some time.
A wee bit time now. It wasn't yesterday. Very fortunate. A youngster. I loved the sound of the pipes and presented myself for tuition, and here we are today.
So you're a bit of a teacher now yourself. Is it still a cool thing for children to be learning these days?
Very much so. We get both girls and boys presenting themselves for tuition, and it's very popular, and it's really good to keep up traditions.
Well, Matthew, you're one of the pupils keeping up tradition. Is it a cool thing for you to be doing at school?
Well, I'd say so, because there's a lot of kids taking it up these days. And
what do your friends at school say to you?
Well, I get a wee bit of stick, but it's usually just friendly banter. I mean, there's nothing too wrong with it.
Well, I love the sound of it.
Can I just look at this? Our lovely Billy Petrie's just given me a little dram just to get me started before breakfast. Now, stay with us, because we are going to be here all morning. We're going to be talking food. We're going to be talking tradition, music, everything that is Scottish. Do not go away. We'll see you a bit later on.
Yep, see you in about 15 minutes' time. Thank you very much.
Well, it'll be a very happy new year for our next guest. She's very lucky to have been able to spend Christmas at home in Swindon with her family. You'll remember this story. Just 3 months ago, she lay seriously ill in a Turkish hospital.
In September, teenager Sarah Webster slipped on her hotel balcony while on holiday in Turkey. She plunged 30 feet to the ground and suffered multiple fractures. At first, she was stranded in hospital because her insurance company refused to pay out, and her father spoke to GMTV from her bedside.
The report that went from the hospital said that she had a significant amount of alcohol, and that clause said that obviously if that she cannot claim.
The insurers finally relented, and now Sarah's home and on the road to recovery. Her ultimate aim is to get back in the saddle on her horse and go riding again.
Well, just look at her now. Sarah joins us along with her mum, Pat. Good morning to you. You're looking so much better than you were there. You poor thing. It was dreadful, wasn't it? I see you've still got crutches with you, though.
Yeah.
So obviously not walking properly yet. How are you now?
Not too bad. Everyone says I've done reasonably well with my recovery. Now it just seems to be going quite slow. But using these are like easier than with crutches because they I can hold them in a position where my wrists don't actually have the right wrist bend at the moment.
Oh, right, yeah, because you did. Talk us through the injuries then. 2 smashed up legs.
Yeah, I got 10 pins in this leg and a plate down at the bottom. Got a rod going right through the middle of this bone, which is slightly proud at the top, which is actually digging into my muscle, so they're not sure what they're going to do with that yet.
So another operation probably or something?
Yeah, either to slightly shorten it or to do something with it. My wrists, I've got 2 plates in my right wrist, which is going reasonably well. The left one is very slow because, as you can see, it doesn't move. That's the position that it stays in. That's got 1 plate in, which they're not sure what they're actually going to do with that one.
Quite a bionic woman, aren't you, really, it sounds like.
Yeah, a bit too much metal work.
I know, you'd be beeping through every airport from now on. Pat, it must have been just dreadful for you having your daughter out there. You must have felt so helpless.
Yeah, it was very difficult. You know, you had no support from the insurance company whatsoever.
Yes.
And if it hadn't been for people back home, then I really don't know how we would have coped.
And so what happened in the end? Because we heard all of the big story about the insurance company wouldn't pay for you to come home, but in the end they relented, didn't they?
Yeah, I think that was mainly because of all the media that happened and our local MP that actually got the ball rolling and actually spoke to them, and if it wasn't for him and the media, then I think we might have been in a bit of trouble.
Yes, I bet. And you were flown home by private jet in the end. Is that true?
Yeah, not the most comfiest of planes I've ever been on.
I'm sure in your condition nothing would have been comfortable there. Now, horse riding is your big, big love, and there was all this stuff at the time that you might have to sell your horse to pay the bills to get you back, but thankfully that hasn't happened, and it's Izzy, isn't it, your horse? She's still with you. How long do you think it might be before you can ride again?
They're not sure. They're aiming on sort of 10, 11 weeks, but that depends on what they actually have to do with the other wrist. Everything else is reasonably on track.
Right. So you definitely think you'll be back in the saddle, because you were getting quite good in eventing, weren't you, before the accident?
Yeah, I had a bit of an accident earlier on in the season where I had to have 1 horse destroyed, which I rode for Ken, but I've got another one at the moment, which he lets me ride as well.
A nice quiet horse, hopefully, that's not going to throw you off and do any more damage. Well, it's lovely to see you back, and have a very happy New Year. Pat, lovely for you to see you this morning as well. It must be great to have her back home this time of year. Thank you very much, and all the best for the future. Thank you.
Amazing, isn't it? GMTV today next, right through until 9:25. Stay with us for more on the disaster relief effort for the countries affected by the Boxing Day tsunamis. Your pledges now total £25 million.
Amazing, isn't it? If you'd like to give, call the number on the screen, 0870 60 60 900. Every little bit counts. And let's take a look at the weather with Claire.
What's your name?
Brown, sir. Thomas Brown.
There were 2 fresh faces that day at rugby school. The new headmaster and young Tom Brown.
Have no fear, Tom.
Stephen Fry stars in a brand new adaptation of a timeless classic.
Learn from the strong. Protect the weak. Stand up to bullies and blackguards of every kind.
Tom Brown's School Days.
Then let the adventure begin.
New Year's Day at 9 on ITV1.
Jump into the new year with a bang. Out with the old and in with the new, as LK puts 3 of the new best-selling diet books to the test. And Dr. Hilary is on hand to cross-examine the creators. Plus, see how you can reevaluate your life and prioritise the things that are really important. LK Today next week on GMTV.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Topps Tiles, brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Now, 2004 is likely to ease out very quietly indeed, but 2005, stormy start to the year. More about that in a second. This morning, we are seeing clouds across more southern areas, hence the temperatures have held up. It's a mild start here. The cloud is thick enough in places to give some patchy rain, but some areas remaining dry, and it will clear off the scene through the morning into the afternoon. Now, further north, it's a slightly different story. Clearing skies overnight has allowed some mist and fog to form, and also there will be problems this morning with frost and also icy stretches on some untreated roads. 1 or 2 showers moving in across the far northwest. In fact, through the day, they are likely to become more frequent. The cloud in the south will clear off the scene, allowing some sunshine. It's a lovely way to perhaps end the year with some bright spells. But the windy conditions across the far northwest, that's likely to bring more and more showers in during the afternoon. As you can see then, there's not going to be much in the way of wind further south, and the temperatures then still mild in the south but quite chilly in the north. So for New Year's Eve, if you are heading out, I think it's going to be quite a cold evening across the far north. Elsewhere, I think temperatures holding up, but there will be a few showers, particularly across more northern and western areas. As with the nature with showers, they will come and go, so it's not going to be a lot of rain, where it's going to be cloudy skies all evening and heavy, heavy rain, but there will be 1 or 2 coming in from the northwest with quite a brisk breeze. Eastern side of Scotland, as well as the bulk of England and Wales, clearing skies, and that's good news. I don't think there's going to be any problems with frost, particularly for the evening in the first part of the night. So these are the main towns for Edinburgh, as well as Aberdeen and Newcastle. Mostly dry. Look at those temperatures, they're rather chilly. And further south, as you can see, there will be mostly dry skies, just Belfast and Glasgow, as well as Oban. I think we will see some showers here. But 2005, as I said, it's going to be a very windy day indeed, and it's going to be very wet. Lashings of rain spreading in from the Atlantic, clearing away, turning colder on Sunday. Here's your summary. See what's coming up this weekend on our website, gm.tv.
Saving the children. Britain's pledged £15,000 a minute to help the tsunami victims. It's approaching 7 o'clock on Friday, the 31st of December. It's a bit muted, but it is in fact New Year's Eve.
It is. Good morning to you, though. This is GMTV Today, 6 days after the Boxing Day disaster that has shocked the world.
Yes, it's now believed that children make up 1/3 of the victims of the disaster in Southeast Asia. This morning, as you and the rest of the world give generously to an international aid fund, we ask what's being done to help those children.
Well, collectively, the death toll from the tragedy stands at 125,000, but that number is still rising, and the number of homeless and in need of immediate help at least 5 million. We can cross now to the holiday resort of Phuket in Thailand, where there's particular concern for the number of children orphaned by the tsunami. Richard Gaisford is there. Richard, what is the feeling there this morning?
Well, certainly it's a pretty harrowing scene up at the Survivor Centre in Phuket town. That's where I spent most of yesterday afternoon, Kate, and it's a pretty depressing place to be, really. There are boards and boards and boards just full of pictures of the missing and the dead. They're looking to identify bodies of those that they've recovered from the sea, and all around you there are friends and family and relatives looking for any small bit of information about those that they are desperately searching for. The desperately sad thing is that so many of them are children. Pictures of the children there, and it really is heartbreaking to see these little children that were here having a wonderful time on the beach on holiday and are now missing, many of them torn from brothers, sisters and mums and dads. And also there are a large number of orphans too, especially amongst the foreign nationals who are here on holiday. Thankfully, the embassies have got into action very quickly. They've set up stools and offices at the Survivor Centre, and they are taking those children giving them to embassy staff to help look after them and try and reassure them until they can get them back to their various countries and back to relatives and relations. Now, amongst them are two young boys from Cornwall, Theo and Lewis Barrett Mullen. Now, both of them have lost their parents. Their parents have disappeared. At the moment, they're presumed dead, and obviously they'll be looking for some good news, as are the thousands of others who are desperately waiting for just some shred of information, some little bit of light at the end of a very dark tunnel. I just wanted to show you these pictures as well. These have come to light overnight, and I think these really highlight the plight that many faced here in Thailand. Now, this is down in Krabi, a resort just to the south of where I am now. And this was a woman running into the sea as the wave came in, as the tsunami came in, desperately trying to find her family, grab them to tell them what was going on and to get them out to a place of safety. And I have to say, we have no idea as to whether she did that or not and what has happened to them. And it is more than likely that a number of them are amongst the missing as well.
Terrifying, isn't it, those pictures, Richard, when you see the wave gradually coming towards people, just not knowing on the beach. There is, I understand, though, a bit of good news from Thailand, and goodness knows they need it.
Yeah, at the start of the week, we were reporting on Christopher and Gaynor Mullen. They were a couple who had just got married a week ago and were come here on honeymoon. From Surrey they are, and everyone was looking for information on them. I've seen their picture up at the Survivor Centre, people pleading for someone to come forward and say they've seen them. Well, it appears this morning that someone has, and they've been reported safe. Now, I haven't got personal confirmation of that, but the word is that they are safe, so that is one piece of good news.